here we have our layout again. Now what's important with signalling is you have to move between block boundaries. So let's first of all look at moving along the line here into the bay. Now signals go between each other, so the first thing we need to do is define a rather strange signal at the buffer stop. For this we're going to use a virtual signal. It doesn't really exist in hardware, it's just there so we can attach a red light to the buffer stop. The reasons for this become apparent when we start setting up the rules for how the signalling works. So we're now creating an internal signal head called the buffer head. It doesn't really exist, but it's just internal to the system. It has no sensor, no turnout accessory drivers. We're now going to add a signal mast for the buffer stop. Now the signalling system is being extended in time, so although we're showing it here with a 2-aspect signal, I believe the types for buffer stop is going to be added to JMRI fairly soon, so it might actually be in the version you're using. Now we're adding the head, and if you now look at the table, we actually have a buffer mast which has 2 states, and we've created it. Now what we're going to do with our various signal masts is add them to our layout diagram, and we need to add them at various block boundaries, which are these little green squares. So the first thing we do is set signal masts at the buffer stop. If we drag the dialog in, it's a fairly simple dialog. We choose the mast, in this case the buffer mast, and we decide to put a little icon on the panel as well. It's quite sensible to do this. So there's our little mast. We're just going to position it right by the buffer stop. Now when we get to running the layout, we don't want this to appear, so what we're going to do is make it hide when not editing. That means it will disappear when we're in run mode. We now need to add the mast coming in on the down approach, which is before we get to the crossover and the bay. So we go to the block boundary, set the signal masts there. Now this dialog is a little more complicated because we could have a signal in either direction. The system doesn't actually know, but we know we're putting the signal in the eastbound direction of the diagram, and it's the down approach mast, and we're placing that beside the track. Again, it's got the wrong orientation, so if we just go to rotate it, that's just a visual rotate of the signal for our own benefit, and we rotate it. Should rotate, there we go. And we can click through, it goes through call on yellow, flashing yellow, red, and so on. Now the other signal we need to place is the one down at the end of the down platform, the down platform mast, which is going to go down at the end of the layout on that block boundary there. So we'll set the signal at that position. Again, it could be in either direction, but we know we're going east, so it's the upper part of the thing. We put the down mast there, click done, and again we'll need to rotate it just for our visual effect. And that should now be rotating. There it is, and we'll just position it by dragging it around a little bit. Now this is all very nice and dandy. What we want to do is to create the rules between these signals, so from the down approach to the buffer stop and from the down approach to the platform mast. This gets where it's quite clever. You just choose set the signal mast logic from the down approach signal. We get this dialog box which shows the signalling pairs, and we ask the system to discover what signals exist. It'll go away and calculate, comes back, and it's worked them out. And as we see, there are 2 of them. So from the down approach mast we can get to the buffer mast and to the down platform mast, and it will have created all the rules for us. So as you can see now, the down approach has gone yellow, and as we flick turn out it goes through red and back to yellow. If we change the down mast to green, the approach mast goes green, which is correct. As we go through the states of the platform mast, we'll notice that the down approach has also changed state. If we go to the sensors, we can look at what happens with the occupancy of the track. So if we scroll down and we look at the bay sensor, if the bay is active and we set the turnouts into the bay, we'll notice the signal goes red. That's not quite what we want, but it's not bad as a starter. It's automatically detecting the tracks occupied ahead of us. We'll come on to using the call on correctly in the next session.